Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Teas. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Teas at dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Hi guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Earnest James. And on my podcast, my guests and I discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So check out our podcast. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even on Audible. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel at Deal to Heal with E. James Podcast. Until then, see you soon. Welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. We believe that the relationship between a dad and daughter is one of the most important relationships in a woman's life. Our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world and give love and support to all of our dads and their daughters. Let's get to it. Let's tune in. All right. Welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and we believe that the relationship between a dad and his daughter is one of the most important relationships in a woman's life. And therefore, our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of our social media pages. Also, make sure you guys check us out at our YouTube channel, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you can find not only the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, but you also can find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Both of those podcasts are available at the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, which is our YouTube channel. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Also, you guys can get your copy of the Core 4 ebook, which is the Core 4 values that every daughter should get from her father. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast. But you guys can get your copy of the Core 4 ebook at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com. Make sure you guys are checking that out. But today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Mr. Young. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. It's been a great day so far. Having a good evening. How about yourself, Mr. Ernest?
I am good. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else. But you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So let's jump right into this thing. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do.
Of course. Thank you for that. Oh, I messed up breaking things already. Well, as you can see, I'm clumsy. But my name is Ashton Young. I am a father, a veteran, currently engaged to my beautiful fiance. And a little bit about myself, I've experienced a lot in life. Grew up in a lot of impoverished neighborhoods. I'm a fatherless son. so to speak. So the irony of
Mhm.
this conversation is, I think, one of high regard and high value. I've experienced a lot in life, and one of the things that I told myself when I was 8 years old is that I would never allow my kids to experience the feeling that I felt, not having a father. So that has been my journey in life, my mission to really just become the best possible version of myself in order to be that example and empowerment for my kids. Surprisingly, I have an 8-year-old daughter who, was my first child, and she's been a huge part of my life, a huge part of the reason why I still get up and put in the work every day, get on the grind, to continue to focus. I'm currently a wealth advisor, so I specialize in financial planning. I came down this path, and I can imagine we'll get into it in a sense, just because of the lack of financial literacy in our communities and our neighborhoods. And so I think it goes hand in hand with the reason for absentee fathers and, fathers missing or in the grave or in prisons, just due to that lack of financial literacy. So that's one of the major reasons I chose this path. I'm excited for the episode. I do host a podcast episode as well. Pure Beauty Wealth and Serendipitous Moments with my beautiful fiance. And so, I'm looking forward to the conversation. I think it'll be a good one.
All right, definitely, definitely. First of all, let me say thank you for your service. I always appreciate it coming from a family of servicemen and women myself. I always make sure I give you guys that respect and honor. I was going to go into the service. I wanted to be a Marine. That was like my, you know,
Me
sort of
too.
my goal when I was little. You know what I mean? I remember seeing my first Marine with the suit on, with the sword, and I was like, I want that. You know what I mean? Just for that reason, just the suit and the sword. You know what I mean? I don't know what else that I have to do to earn it, but that's what I want. So yeah, thank you for your service. And I definitely do want to get into it a little bit later. I'll wait a little bit later into the podcast to get
Mhm.
into you being a fatherless son, so to speak, and how that molded you, to be the person that you are. But we'll get into that a little bit later because we want to get and talk about your daughter and that relationship. So first question I want to ask you, what is your daughter's name? And what you told us her age, but what is your daughter's name and her age?
Of course. So my daughter's name is Adeline Young, and she's 8 years old.
Okay, cool, cool. So in your own words, what does it mean for you to be a girl dad?
Mm. Um, in my own words, I feel like what it means to me is, I feel like it's one of the highest honors in life possible. Um, there's not many other things up there that I feel like brings you as much value and joy and just understanding that, I have to be an example in so many different ways for my daughter
Mhm,
that, is
mhm.
unimaginable. And it's a continuous learning journey on that path for sure.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's go back to the beginning, right? To beginning of
Mm.
your girl dad journey. So how did you even find out that you were going to be a father? And was that something that was planned, or was it kind of a happenstance? Because we come into these positions different ways. You know what I mean?
Oh, most certainly, most certainly. Just young, wild, in the military. But unlike a lot of people, and surprisingly to most people, I was married, to my child's mother at the time. So we were married, and it wasn't planned. But I kind of found out. So I got orders. So I was in the Coast Guard, by the way. So I had just gotten out of boot camp, and I went to my first unit, which was in Charleston, South Carolina.
Mhm,
And then um, I was leaving that unit, and I got orders to travel to go to Seattle, Washington. So on the way to Seattle, Washington, her mom at the time, she started having these weird eating habits. And then, because I drove from Jacksonville to Seattle, Washington. So
mhm,
she started having these weird eating habits. And then, she started feeling like sick. And I was like, you're pregnant. And she was like, no, I'm not. I don't think I'm pregnant. I don't, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, I got a feeling you are. So, on our way, we stopped at a CVS and got a pregnancy test. And sure enough, she was pregnant. So on the way to Seattle, found out she was pregnant. And then uh, the rest went from there.
Right. So once you guys, found out that you were having a child, I know you go through the different checkups and things of that nature. Did you guys wait to find out the sex of the baby, or did you guys find out right away?
Oh, not at all. We found out right away. Like, soon as we were able to find out, we I am not a patient person. I'm becoming one, but at that time, it was no patience in my body. I didn't have time to wait. I was like, I need to know what's happening. I need to figure this out. What's going on? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how was your experience, right? So um two questions. How was your experience with the pregnancy? As that's one question. And then how was your experience? Well, let's start there. So this the reason why I asked that, because in my own journey, my daughter being my only child, and when she was born, her mom didn't gain any weight. You know what I mean? Like she
Mm.
was all stomach.
Oh wow.
I gained all the weight, and I still haven't got it off. My daughter's 21. You know what I mean? So I gained all the weight during the pregnancy. She was all stomach. Once my daughter was born, her stomach went back down and she was back her regular size, and I was still chunky. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So how was
That
your
makes sense.
experience with the pregnancy and even interacting with your wife as being a young father and a father for the first time? How was that experience to be able to even go through those months of expecting the child and watching as your wife began to grow and things of that nature before your daughter even got here?
Of course, of course. And I want to say respectfully, I guess if we can um classify her as my daughter's mom, or another respectful term, because we don't obviously don't have to say ex-wife, but I just want to
Mhm.
be respectful to my current relationship and things of that
Yes.
nature. But yeah, so my daughter's mom, it was rough. It was really rough. It was such a rough time, just because again, I was very young minded. I was 19 years old. you know don't know half nothing about nothing, traveling. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and I done traveled all the way to Seattle by myself with just me and my daughter's mom at the time. I'm on a ship as well, so I'm transitioning. Like as soon as we get there, like a month or two later, I went on my first patrol for 3 months at a time. So just trying to juggle all of those different happenings at the time was really rough.
Right.
Luckily, I had made some really good friends in the military, and one of my close friends at the time, me and him and his wife, we all four of us became friends. So we had our own little relationship. So when me and Bryce, he was in the military with me, that was my friend. When we would go out to sea and get underway, our partners at the time, they would hang out and spend time together. So
Mhm.
she had that support from them. But yeah, it was just a rough time. Like I say, I was not mentally prepared to take on all of those
Mhm.
different emotions and happenings that was taking place, because I've been a person in survival mode my whole life. So I've
Mhm.
always been focused on getting to a bag, grinding, trying to make things happen. And it was just like we weren't aligned in as far as what we thought was priority.
Yeah, yeah. And so even you mentioned, definitely having to go on your tours and things of that nature. So when your
Mhm.
daughter was born, were you there or were you away?
Oh, fortunately, I was there. So I was there. Like we came back. I want to say a week before she was born. So I did get to see her birth, and I did hold her during birth.
Nice, nice. So how was that experience as a young father? After she's born, I don't even say in the room at the moment, that's one thing, right? To be in
Mhm.
the moment when she's born. But how was it when you actually get her home for the first time and realize, like, all right, you mentioned about all the things that were all the happenings that was going on, but now you get her home and it's like, all right, now this is really my responsibility on top of everything else. You know what I mean? So how was that experience for you? Coming to that realization, and how did you handle that? With everything else that you already had going on too.
I feel like it was fuel to the fire. It was more fuels for me to understand. I got to make things happen. I got to really take the time to uh, figure out what I'm gonna do in life, how I'm gonna be successful, and how I'm gonna give her the best life possible. You know, that's why I wake up every day. Well, one of the main reasons why I wake up every day is to give my daughter the best life possible, and why I work so hard. I had started taking college classes while I was on the ship. I just started to really start to position myself to be further in life and to continue to grow and be the best man that I can be, and be an example for her. So it was a blessing for sure. Having her home, definitely, I was very gentle with her, like, cause my grandparents, they came to visit us, and when she was born, like I think the first or second week after she was born, and so like they're all holding her and comfortable walking around, but I'm holding her, like walking her with like her like literally close to the floor. Like as I'm walking, I'm making sure she's close to the floor just in case anything happens. Like she's not like I don't drop her far or anything like that. I was very gentle with her for sure. I was doing everything so gentle. I just ensured that I didn't want her to get hurt in any type of way, or things of that nature. I was watching YouTube videos on like what happens if she chokes, how should I birth her. Like I was just doing all kinds of research on what do I need to do. Let me.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, that's good. That's a good thing because at least you are seeking the knowledge to know what to do on your journey as being a father, and that's one of the things that I speak on, especially, and we'll get into this in a minute, but especially when you don't have the example of what it is to be a father because you haven't seen it in your own life. So one of the things I tell young dads all the time is like, look for mentorship, look for the information. All of us say we want to be the best fathers, but we're not going to become that by osmosis. You know what I mean? Especially when we haven't had an example. It's like we literally have to go be intentional about getting the information on what a good father looks like. Like, what does a good father do? How does a good father care for his child? Like, really taking the time to get that information. So I'm proud of you for even taking that knowledge. And then YouTube University is
a
is
hundred percent.
undefeated. You know what I mean? You can find pretty much anything that you want to learn. You can find it there.
I'm a
Um,
doctor in a lot of different areas off of
yeah.
YouTube. I got
So I
my
wanna I
YouTube
wanna ask
PhD.
you. I
If
want
I
I
can
want to
say
ask
something
you
really,
another
if
question.
I can
Yeah.
say something really quick,
Mhm.
what you just said was real powerful in my opinion. You said something that I feel like it could be applied to so many areas in life, especially parenting. You said you're not going to become a good father just based on osmosis. It has to be intentional learning, intentional education. And I feel like that can be applied in so many areas because there's so many parents out there in the world who just think that, oh, I'm gonna be a good parent just out of the blue, or based on their experience. And think it's like, no, you have to put in the work, read books, watch YouTube, learn, and intently continue to figure out ways to be better. And just like with relationships, you have to put in the work, read, and jobs and businesses, podcasting. Like you put in the work. Like you gave me so many valuable resources before this episode to show I'm not just out here making a podcast. No, I'm intently going and seeking that education. And I feel like that's a lost value in our society for sure, especially in the
Yeah.
world of parenting.
And it is. And so I did a live, I think it was last Sunday. It might have been last Sunday or the Sunday before last. I do a live every Sunday. Me and a group of my friends, we go live on all of our platforms, and we just have different discussions. But one of the
Mhm.
last discussions that we had was about mentorship. And so what I was saying even there was, we have to get mentorship in every area of our lives, not just one area. Like if we want to be the best that we can be, then we have to look out for those who are doing it the way we want to do it, and look for mentorship in those areas, not just being a father, not just being a girl dad, but in every area on our job, and the things we do for leisure, whatever it is. If we want to be the best in every area, we have to learn, right? And what better way
Amen.
to learn than for a mentor? um, and another reason why this hits home when we started talking about fatherhood, and I guess we can kind of go here a little bit, was I give the example of a gentleman that I know whose father unfortunately was killed when he was younger, right? And so he grew up without his dad. And so one of
Mhm.
the things he would always say throughout his life was, I'm always going to be present for my sons when I have kids. Fast forward, he ended up having four sons and wasn't active in their life,
Oh
and
wow.
having a conversation later on was like, well, he knew what it's like to grow up without a father. So why would he then in turn not being in the life of his father and his kids as a father when it was something that he always said that he would do? And I
Mhm.
told him the same thing, on the lines what I've just mentioned to you is it may have been something that he said, but without an example, what you're going to do? You're going to fall back into the things that you are used to doing. So, in your mind, what does a father look like? If you don't have a physical example, and the only example that you have to draw on is a missing person, then you're going to become that missing person because that's the only example you have. So, even though in your mind you're saying, I want to be the best father, but if you don't know what that looks like, what are you going to do? You're going to fall back into the routine of things. And so it's so easy for us to do that. So I don't necessarily hold that against him. However, I do talk about mentorship. Like, you want to be
Mhm.
a good father, you have to seek out that information. You have to go to YouTube, you have to go to Facebook, join some Facebook, men's groups and
Pick up
fatherhood.
a book.
Yeah, like all of those resources are at our fingertips. You know what I mean? But we have to be active and intentional about doing it. So in your experience, because you mentioned earlier about not growing up, or being a fatherless son, so to speak, how did that mold you, with your viewpoint of, your father and your relationship when you came to you, time for you to have your daughter? How did your life experiences change you as a person when it came to your daughter and showing up in the way that you wanted to as a father?
Tenfold. Like I said, I made the decision at 8 years old, that I was not going to give that same life to my kids, so just understanding what that feels like, it's hard on people. And I feel like, you know, I've been coming to this conclusion about life and really understanding why, you know, people with fathers don't understand what it's like to go without a father. And I one of the concepts that it's a working theory, but I'm still working on it. I'm getting to the realization that it's hard for people to imagine things, no matter how much they say I imagine or I feel or I empathize or I read, unless you experience something, it's really, really hard to imagine
Mhm.
what another person is going through. And so for me, experiencing being 8 years old in one of the worst cities in America and having to survive that without a father figure and without a father was, it was a lot. It was traumatizing, it was hurtful. I was sad. I had a lot of anger, aggression. I just went through so much trying to, overcome a lot of different things. Plus, so I have two sisters, but one of my sisters wasn't born for most of my youth. But I had a sister that's a year older than me, and um, her dad wasn't there either in the beginning. And so it's just me, my sister, and my mom. So now I'm the man in the house as well at 8 years old and things of that nature. So it's a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things that come with that. And like you said, I'm sorry, one second. And like you said, not having someone to look up to or someone, who you can look at, it really mentally messes you up a lot because
Mhm.
what happens is in that moment, not only am I seeking for that mentorship, like you said, seeking for that guidance, but I'm also observing. I'm a very observant person. So I'm watching how other kids are interacting with their fathers. And, that's
Mhm.
sad. Like, it's saddening because you go to football games and as you do something good, everybody's cheering you on, but the other kid does something good and he goes to the sideline, his dad high fives him, or after the game, he's standing on his dad's back or things, and like, I guess people don't really realize because I didn't talk about that, but I watch that stuff. I'm seeing that stuff. I'm seeing how I go to practice. My mom drops me off, and my mom was an amazing mom. She did everything she could for me, but she's not interested in football. She's just glad that I'm playing football. So she's,
Mhm.
doing what she do, enjoying, her time on her, taking her time from working all day trying to support two kids, relaxing as she should. But the other fathers, they're out there, they're on the field, they're, talking to the coaches, they're learning about the game. They're able to just do so much more for their kid in that moment because it's something that they can share. It's something that they can like have in common in a sense.
Mhm.
So all of that was it was very traumatizing. It was hurtful. It was sad. And like I say, it just I'm one of those people. I'm very emotional and I'm very in tune and in touch with my emotions. So I have always told, like, since I felt that way, I'm like, I don't want my daughter to feel that way. I don't want my kids to feel that way. I never want my kids to have to feel that way and go through that because I know what it's like. I experienced it. I don't have to imagine it. I don't have to, I can easily think of a time where I was at a football game and something happened. I can easily think of a time where, my dad wasn't around and I needed some like a male figure to talk to. I
Mhm.
can easily think of all of those times. And, to this day, and I feel like even to this day, like I just started a self-love journey about a year and a half ago, because even to this day, I'm understanding that, I could still break down crying at the fact that I don't have a father. And I'm 30 years old. You would think that by now, oh, you'd be over it. But no, there's still times where I'm just like, man, like I wish I had a father in my life. I wish I had someone who I connected with on a deeper level, who, I can talk to and connect with, because it's interesting. You were talking about your experience and how the reason you started Girl Dad's podcast was very beautiful. The fact that, you've been dating a lot of fatherless women. And ironically for me, I've dated a lot of women who have fathers. So, so it's one of those things where it's like, they don't really know. And obviously it's not, you know, it's no expectation for them to know, but they sometimes don't understand why I feel the way I feel about certain things because they have fathers, and
Mhm.
they come with certain expectations because they have fathers and things of that nature. So it's like it's really an interesting dynamic being in this type of situations, not having a father. And then, so I do certain things or I may act certain ways or, maneuver certain ways. And they're just like, man, like you're very different. I'm very different than,
Mhm.
a lot of the things they may have seen or experienced. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then, so like I say, and putting that on my daughter in regards to like that, like, since day one, I've been there for her. Even though me and her mom haven't always had the best relationship, I've always told her mom that I don't care what happens in life. I don't care what me and her are going through. I'm gonna be
Mhm.
there for my daughter. Like, I don't care how mad she gets at me. Some people, like some men, say, oh, well, the mom's mad at me, so I'm not gonna do nothing. I don't care. Like, that's my child. I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to ensure that I'm supporting her, whether that's financially, whether that's physically, whether that's like, whatever I can do. And I talk to my daughter about that all the time. I'm like, me and your mom are not together, but I'm still gonna be there for you for any and everything. Call me at 2 in the morning, like text me, like whatever. It don't matter what's
Mhm.
happening in life. Yeah, I'm, like I said, I'm working to provide the best life possible for her and change our lives. Though I'm forever be there for her for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to go back to something you said because it really is a crazy dynamic, right? Because I grew up with
Mhm,
my dad, right? I grew up in a two-parent household my entire life, and so having seen my dad, raise me, and not only that, I have five sisters, so I'm able to
mhm,
watch him raise my sisters as well. And so when I got to the point where I realized, that every woman I had dated was fatherless, was a fatherless daughter, even those having so once I realized that, I started being asked to be on podcasts, because I
mhm,
shared it with you, and I've definitely shared it on the podcast before, that was my introduction to podcasting, right? I realized that I was, every woman I had ever dated was a fatherless daughter. I started a page on Instagram called Friends of Fatherless Daughters, and where I would go and just give my advice and my opinion as a father to a daughter, as a girl
Mm-hmm.
dad, as a brother to five sisters who lived in the same house as my dad. So got to watch my dad raise my sisters, and then just with my interactions with fatherless daughters. But when I started doing interviews, that was one of the questions that will always come up is like, what was, the things that you noticed that fatherless daughters would do that other daughters wouldn't do, like,
Mm.
or women who had their fathers wouldn't do. And I said, well, really, as far as the women that I dated, I didn't realize anything because I've only dated fatherless daughters, so it was just normal to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The things that they did in common, it was like, oh, that's just how women act, right? But it
Yeah.
wasn't until I made that, aware, I became aware of that fact that I started looking into the effects of fatherless, being fatherless, the effects that it has on young ladies, and then started
Mhm.
holding those experiences up against my sisters because watching my dad raise them, like, oh, there is a difference. Like there are certain things that my sisters didn't do or wouldn't do because of my dad that I now can identify that some of the women that I dated would do or wouldn't do because they didn't have a father, and so you start
100%.
to
Yeah.
begin to realize those different dynamics and how much of a difference that it plays. And so I'm excited for you, and I also applaud you for being proactive in that way to be like, what, as a young age, again, saying it at a young age, but then getting to the point where when you did have your daughter, that it was like, no, I'm not just going to say it, but now I'm going to look for the resources that's going to actually help me to become the father that I wish I had. And so I definitely applaud you and appreciate you for being that example, because it's something I preach all the time. Like I said, like, dude, you got to get the mentorship. You can't just think you're going to become a great father just because you had a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, it doesn't equate. You know what I mean? It's not
100%.
automatic. You know what
You
I'm
can't
saying?
think your way to a great person.
Right. So I definitely appreciate you for again taking out that time yourself to become the best father that you can be. I wanna switch it up a little bit, right? So I want us to go um, jump into the next segment of the podcast, which is called Getting to the Core segment, right? And
Mhm.
so for my listeners, the Getting to the Core segment is a segment that I talk about based off of the ebook that I wrote, which is the Core Four, which is the core four values that every daughter should get from her father. You guys can get your copy of the ebook or of the ebook at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com, and that is the core for ebook. So I want to talk about it really quickly because I wrote this ebook again, just realizing the differences from how I wanted to raise my daughter, the values that I wanted to pour into her, the values that I seen my dad pour into my sisters, and then the values that by no fault of their own, some of the women that I dated had or didn't have, because of the absence of their father. And so I thought about at its core, what are those values that, I think that every daughter should have. And so those values are guidance, affirmations, love and affection, and protection. So those are the four core values. So of those four, which one is most important to you to instill in your daughter and why?
Yeah, I feel like that's a great question, and I think that's a really great book that you're writing. Thank you for sharing that for sure. I mean, that you wrote. Thank you for sharing that for sure. And in the instance for me, I feel like I don't think it's possible to say one of them is more important than the other. I feel like they're all important. I feel like they all hold significant value in regards to raising a child and raising a daughter, especially when you talk about affirmations, when you talk about, could you put it back on the screen bar, or like, could you say them again? Because it was affirmations,
Yeah. Guidance,
guidance,
affirmations, love and affection,
love and affection,
and protection.
and protection. Exactly. I mean, I feel like those are very valuable, very valuable. And I don't think it's possible to say one is more important than the other because they, especially in the world we live in today, they need all
Mhm.
four of those.
Yeah, 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 and they definitely do. So last question before we get out of here. Um, the ebook is called the Core Four, which is the four
Mhm.
values, those four core values. But if there could be a fifth value that you can add to those four, what would that fifth value be and why?
Financial literacy, and I say financial literacy because we see every single day just how women and men, but since we're talking about girl dad, our daughters are they are sacrificing those values that we just talked about to get money and to achieve money and to chase money and to gain money. And I truly believe that, a part of that problem is due to a lack of financial literacy. If women were taught how to understand how to build wealth, understand how to save money, understand how to invest money, understand how to work a job, and instead of going out and partying, put that money into a savings account, an investment account, and really let that money build and grow, and possibly like start a side hustle or a side gig. They don't have to, but if they really want the bag that bad, it's doable. Like starting a podcast, and there's so many other ways to build your bag. But because a lot of our women and daughters lack financial literacy, all of the money they get, they spend it. They spend it on jewelry
Mhm.
and shopping sprees and all of the things to stay up with the times and they look good for social media and all these things that it's like if I'm spending my money so fast, I don't have time to build it and save it. It's
Mhm.
going to get to a point where I'm really willing to sacrifice those values and those morals to get more money,
Yeah.
or I'm a lose sight of my affirmations, lose sight of my guidance. Put myself in situations where I'm not protected in regards to hanging around the wrong type of men who have money but aren't the best for me and things of that nature. So it's just I feel like we can see the domino effect of women who don't understand financial literacy or women who don't have a great who don't place emphasis and value on financial literacy, because you know like there's men who will hustle and get money, but they might not be the best for a woman, though if he has the money, the sweetest of girls are will, like I said, we see it in the industry every day. We see rappers, athletes, all these different people, with all these daughters, and they're not good for them. They just have a lot of money, and the fact that the woman doesn't have money, it's like, hey, like all these female rappers that are talking about it is like, I'm talking to no dude unless he got money, versus I got my own money. I'm not talking to a dude unless he bring value to my life. I know
Mhm.
how to build money. I'm not talking to a dude unless it matters, unless he gonna protect me, unless he gonna treat me like my father. Well, if they don't have a father. If they have a father, he gotta treat me like my father or better. But if they don't have a father, these are the men that I've looked up to and the fathers that I've seen and how they treat people. You gotta treat me like that, understanding that I don't need a person for their money because I understand how to get my own and build my own and grow my own.
I love it. I love it. We are we are 54 episodes in. And when I asked that question, I've heard a lot of answers and some are repeat answers, but this is the very first time that I've heard somebody say financial literacy and then explain it as well as you have. I definitely appreciate that, man. And I know that's going to be valuable for, our listeners, our dads and our daughters. Excuse me, that listen to the podcast. So thank you. I'm going to say thank you for that, because that even opens up my eyes to, a new chapter, even when I think about the values now, because that was something that I didn't, as a father, definitely something that was on
Hmm.
my list. We're raising my daughter. My daughter's 21 now. So it's definitely important now. It's something that I'm talking to her a lot now about, because now she's in the workforce and she's, wants to be on her own and things of that nature. But I didn't think about it before, as far as just like raising her and when she was younger and coming up to this spot, to this point. with teaching her financial literacy, you know what I mean, and making those investments and stuff. So I thank you. I thank you because I learned something
Oh,
in this episode.
it's my pleasure, and I'm glad. I'm glad I was able to add some value. Like I said, I place a high emphasis on financial literacy for any and all individuals. That's why it's an important topic on my podcast, and not just getting money, gaining money, hustling, and all. No, understanding that money is a tool, it is a
Mhm.
resource, it is the root of all evil if you are desiring it and making it your focus. But in this world we live in, it is a necessary thing to understand. Like, just even understanding the basics can change your life tenfold drastically, and that's one of the things I do in my day-to-day work. I'm a financial planner, and so I love giving. I love I one of the things, like I say, I work on a lot of different theories and understanding as I learn and grow in life. And one of the most important things that I've been trying to understand is, why are our values so lost in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and the way we raise? Like I said, we have so many absentee fathers, and
Mhm.
it's not just men that don't want to be dads. It's because their dad are in jail too. That has plagued our communities for so long as well. So one of the things I've done in my life is I took a step back and I tried to look at it from the outside and say, why is this happening and why it continues to happen? Why does it continue to repeat itself? And I kept getting back to the same conclusion. It's not that we don't know how to make money. It's not that we don't know how to get money. It's not that, we're not willing to get up and grind. Is that we don't know what to do once we get it. We don't understand how to build it. We don't All we know how to do is get it and spend it, get it and spend it, get it and spend it. And we aren't taking the time to say, let me pause. I just got this couple of dollars, whether I did the good thing to get it or the bad thing to get it, I got it. What can I do to ensure that the next thing I do with this money is allow it to make me more money, so I don't have to
Mhm.
do that bad thing, or I can do more of that good thing, in a sense. And so that's why like I say, I think it's highly up there. And I feel like in our communities, once we can get this wave of financial literacy, I'm not saying it'll solve every problem, but it'll definitely open up that discussion to start bringing these men in the home and saving them from going to prison, save our daughters from going to, jobs of that are not the highest of class, and things of
Mhm.
that nature, save them from, dating the wrong men. And I feel like it'll start saving a lot of people from making these decisions that we all make out of survival. A lot of us make decisions based on our survival needs, and not necessarily because that's who we are as people. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, fatherless girls are generally in not the best situations financially. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
their mom is not, if she's a single mother, she's working multiple jobs, she's dating multiple men, she's trying to figure out her own life. And not saying there aren't successful single women, there's a lot of successful single women, but a lot of the times these fatherless girls are understanding their mom is trying to do what she got to do to survive. She gonna do The daughter gonna do what she got to do to survive, and they all just still trying to survive. And it just continues that domino effect that we see in our societies today.
Yeah, yeah. In the words of Chris Rock, our jobs as fathers is to keep our daughters off the pole. Right?
Amen.
Like
Amen to
that's
that.
our main
100%.
that's our main job. Financial literacy, whatever we got to do, keep them off the pole. And then we've
Off the
done
pole
something
and
right.
off the pole, and she can live in my house forever, as long, if it's between living in my house and dating some ain't as person, you can live in my house for the rest of your life, baby. Like, I'm good. Like,
Right,
that's
right.
what I want to be.
Man, I really enjoyed this conversation, man. I can't say again, I've learned something myself that I can take, from this episode.
Mhm.
I want you to have the last word, right? I want you to leave us with a word of advice. You've given us a lot of gems already, but a word of advice or inspiration, motivation, however you feel, um, for our dads or our daughters that may be listening to the podcast. And also give us your social media handles where we can find your podcast and things of that nature, so that we can support you as well. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys and girls once again for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Do me a favor, make sure you guys are checking me out on my main website, which is dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, because my mission in life is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So again, you can find me there on dealhealfulfill.org. Find more things about me, what I have going on, things about the podcast. And also, you can book me to come out to be a speaker or a workshop facilitator for your school or organization. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org. Make sure you guys are checking us out. Also, we talked about our ebooks. If you go to ebooks by ejames.com, you can get your copy of the Core 4 ebook, as well as the From Males to Men ebook, which is a ebook that I wrote for young men that's transitioning into adulthood. So it kind of works and give them advice as a young man, as a father, to help young men to make that transition. Also, right now, I'm giving away absolutely free my ebook, Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self Forgiveness, absolutely free for limited, I want to say a limited time. I don't know how long I'm gonna do it, but if you go to ebooks by ejames.com, you can get a free copy of the Forgiving Me ebook, the 4-Step Guide to Self Forgiveness. And while you're there, grab one of our other ebooks, purchase one of our other ebooks to give us, show us some support. Again, that's ebooks by ejames.com. Also, check us out on our inspirational t-shirt line, deal2healtees.com. That's deal, the number 2, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Not only do we have inspirational tees there, but we also have our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. One for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, and also one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast as well. Last but not least, the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month talking about everything surrounding forgiveness, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world, just everything surrounding forgiveness, because we believe that it's a very important topic and one that our world needs today. So you can sign up for our free virtual workshop at forgivenessmission.com, or you can go to Eventbrite and sign up for the forgiveness workshop sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission. It's absolutely free. So whenever you're listening to this podcast, either one just ended or one is coming up. So make sure you go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free forgiveness workshop. So again, Mr. Young, I want to say thank you so very much for being on, for sharing your story and your expertise on our podcast, for the value that you added to our girl dads and their daughters. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for that. I truly appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for taking the time to allow me to come on your show. I think this is a very, very powerful, well needed, powerful, very much needed podcast in our communities and the world that we live in today. It is such a tragedy that we live in a world where there's so many people, especially daughters, going without fathers. And as like I say, someone who's experienced it myself, it is traumatizing. It is hard. It's tough. There's so much. There's only so much that a mom can do, and that's why God talks about a husband and a wife, because that dynamic is so important to the lives of the kids whenever you're being fruitful and multiplying. And I just thank you for doing this, taking on this journey. Excited to be here. I guess some of my last words would be my social media handles is Pure Vita Wealth Podcast, which is my personal podcast that I host. It is the Serendipitous Moments podcast, which I host with my lovely fiance. And you can find us on all platforms, streaming platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Look for us everywhere. Um, My fiance also has an Etsy shop, which you'll be able to find. And I have to get the name of it. I have the name of it, but yeah, I'll get that in case you have show notes and stuff. But I guess one of the last notes I'll leave you all with is, um, as a parent, it is vital to be an example of who you want your kids to be. You know, we can't expect our kids to do things or tell our kids to do things that we aren't willing to do. Uh, I feel like if you want your kid to be an athlete, you should be an athlete. You don't have to be the best athlete. You don't have to be an expert, but you should find a sport that you like and enjoy and do that. That way your kids see that you're out there practicing. You're out there putting in the work. Even though you might not be going to the league or you might not be doing nothing with it, they have that understanding that my dad isn't, or my dad or my mom isn't just telling me, hey, go out there and practice the soccer, go practice basketball, go practice football, and they're sitting on the couch scrolling through social media all day. I can't tell my daughter to read a book if I'm not willing to read a book. I can't tell my daughter to save money if I'm not saving money. I can't tell my daughter not to hang out with the wrong people if all my friends drink and cuss and do all this stuff, you know? So I just feel like as parents, we have to really take a step back and understand that, am I the example of what I want my child to be? Am I a hypocrite, or am I telling my child to do these things and my child can turn around and look at me and say, my mom is doing that, my dad is doing that, so yeah, maybe I should give those things a try. You know, I feel like that is a lost art in the world of parenting. You know, I feel like we live in a world where a lot of people just select and direct, hey, go do this, go do that, because I said so, because I'm your parent, instead of, hey, you should do this because look at me doing it and look at where it's taking me in life. You should try this out because look at how far I'm getting in life. And that's why, you know, you see athletes like LeBron, so many people is hating on him right now, but he's literally an example of what he wanted his son to become. And guess what? His son is doing it. His son is putting in the work. His son has made it to the NBA. Is like, there's so many examples of fathers and moms who've done that. And I feel like as a community and as a society, we all have to take heed to that we can't just wake up. Yeah, there's some talented, you know, kids and special kids out there who will eventually do it, but we just can't continue to talk to our kids and say, because I'm your parent, you got to do this. We got to really start being those examples and showing them, hey, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to put down social media and pick up a book and study. I'm willing to go talk on podcasts. Look, you can use your voice. I'm willing to do any and everything that I'm asking you to do or I'm expecting to do, or you come to me and say, hey, dad, I want to do this. I'm willing to do it too. You know, I'm willing to be that example to show you. And I feel like it's powerful in so many ways because it shows your kid that, hey, I don't know how to do this. I'm not perfect at it. I'm not 6'7", but look, I'm still willing to go out there and take the risk of embarrassment, of failing, of losses, just to show you that anything that you're willing to do and put your mind to, you can do it.
I love it. I love it. We can't end it no better than that. To my
Okay.
listeners, make sure you guys check out the descriptions under this podcast. So we have all the information that Ashton talked about for his podcast, to the other podcasts, everything that he has going on, social media handles, all will be there in the description. So make sure you guys check that out. Thank you guys once again for listening to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, where our mission is to promote the
Amen.
voices of girl dads in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. And we thank you for listening. Until next time, you guys be blessed.
Take
Thanks for listening to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our podcast on all your podcast listening platforms. Also, don't keep it to yourself, but share it with someone else that the Girl Dad Discussions podcast is on the air. Until next time, be blessed.